Hey, hey, beautiful people. It is 2:48 on May the 28th, 2018. This is Memorial Day, and a lot of people are out celebrating. And today we've got our very first tropical storm that just went over about a half hour ago. The eye went over exactly where I am right now in Panama City, and the sun came out for about 5 minutes before the storm passed through and went on northward. And anyway, it's just a good rain. We needed the rain here. I'm in Panama City right now, and working on constructing a food farm. And this is our first kale smoothies that is garden fresh for the year. And wow, how amazing everything has been since my last video, which was last August, just after the total solar eclipse. And it was calling to extend the 40 days focused meditation or focus, just to hold the energy to neutralize the waves of chaos that would be coming, that has come since that total solar eclipse. And it's gone planet wide, and wow, what a trip it's been. Has been most amazing. Many of us knew it was coming. We didn't know how it would manifest, and I personally had no clue. I got real quiet for a long time because I could feel the chaos incoming. And the best thing I knew to do is just hold the frequencies within my field. Well, the other thing that's happened is we've got a planetary and definitely a national Great Awakening going on right now in the United States. And this Great Awakening is happening with the collective, with a good majority of the collective who weren't part of the volunteers and light workers and those who came in and did focused meditations in years past, all the years past, since the 1980s. Mid 1980s, when all this really first began. So the Great Awakening for many of us started back in the 1980s, and then through the 90s and 2000s and 2010s, which we're in now. So we're spanning 4 decades right there. Since all this really first started unfolding. And many of the things that so many of us knew, and we're in a state of building and building and building, that the deep state, that's the new term for it now, Team Dark, had been doing to control the planet. Many of us knew these things, and we were in a constant state of awakening, because every time that something new was being done to enslave the population, it'd take a while for us to catch on and to realize what was to make real that which was going on, and to try to understand it, to become observant of it, and try to express what was going on to other persons that were awakened and many people that were not awakened. And for years and years and years, a lot of people called us crazy and said we were conspiracy theorists. And that goes on both in the geopolitical and the spiritual levels. I wrote all this in my book, which I entitled The Great Awakening. Back in 2012 was when Jillian Grunham had taken many articles and much channeled work that I had done in the years previous, and she asked me if she could take it and collect it, and edited it and put it into a book format that other people could get that information from. She asked me what I wanted entitled it, and what came through right at that time is The Great Awakening. And that's what we have been witnessing going on for these past 40 years, although I had not heard of anybody using that term prior to she asking me, well, what do you call it? Call it The Great Awakening. Now we have military intelligence working with Trump called Q, which was originally called Q clearance, that is foretelling events that are getting ready to happen on the geopolitical level prior to it coming out in the news, and prior to many of us realizing what that team of white hats, light workers, are doing, that are at the political levels within the United States government. And thank goodness this has happened. This happened just after Q came out, just after the Las Vegas shootings in 2017. Man, I'm still, if I'm in my head, I'm thinking the 1990s, and I haven't really made it into the 2000s yet, and here we are in 2018. And so sometimes I have to come back to this linear reality and play in that, and that's exactly what has happened with me since that last video in August of 2017, after the total solar eclipse. I knew that it was time to quit being, or not necessarily quit being, but to come back to this linear level that physical activity operates on, and hold energies here, because I can do it without losing my frequency. I've come to the point in my mastery where that level of frequency that's within my field is not going to be diminished no matter what goes on around me, and there's nothing that really scares me, so there's no fear or anything like that. So really, it's in getting back into it, which is what my mission has been all about all this lifetime, is to awaken the planet to the geopolitical is being created by our thoughts, our emotions, and what it is an experience for us to have, basically feeding the mind of God. But it's all about the experience, and we created this Earth School to have the experience of duality and separations that we've been experiencing these eons since the fall of Atlantis. And really, at Mu, Lemurian Mu, the experience was still there. That's what we were here for, but we were still connected to Source. And this latter experience since the fall of Atlantis was to experience the total separation from Source, and to lose that direct connection that we all have. We all have that direct connection, and to forget who we were, to forget that we're actually fragments of Source, Creator Gods incarnate, and that which we focus upon is what we manifest. And this time, the manifestation in this lifetime, for so many of us that are volunteers, is to awaken the planet, the Great Awakening, and to expose what's going on geopolitically and keeping us in the lower vibrations, both on a psyop consciousness level, as well as with mechanical devices like computers and televisions and radio frequencies and the 5G network that's being rolled out right now to lower the vibrations of individuals, so that we are not consciously aware and able to change the reality on the exterior. And so the volunteers are here to wake up everybody to, first, its consciousness slowed into projected individual experiences, slowed into light, slowed into sound, crossing over into this physical reality that we experience as life. And those of us that really are connected to source and understanding that this is a quantum universe, and that's how this quantum universe works, that we express ourselves until such times the frequencies elevate on this planet, and when they come up to that which we're holding, then manifestation or magic rapidly unfolds. And boy, have we been witnessing it, that manifestation is happening so instantaneously now. All I need to say is what I need, what I want, and it happens. It unfolds. It happens almost instantly. And sometimes you got to get out to go find that which you have called in, those things that you need. You've got to go exterior or go out into the world and find it. You feel your way through it. You're guided like magnets, because that's exactly how consciousness and how this reality works. It's both positive and negative. That's electromagnetism. Now, binary code, like artificial intelligence, is ones and zeros. But the rest of this, and that's what the Team Dark and the negative alien agenda are trying to program us into, is the artificial world of ones and zeros, which there can never be a zero. There's no such thing as a zero. Other than man making it, because a zero is still a one, because you cannot have a nothing, because a nothing is a something. So there can be no zero. I did a good video on that you can look up. Ding! See, my angels are dinging me right as I say. That's just getting back in touch. Something else that's happened since my last video is, it's not necessarily that my frequency has come down, rather than Earth's frequency has come up. And rather than feeling like my frequency is going so fast in a place that the surroundings are so much lower, and I feel as I ground that my physical being is getting fried because of too high a vibration. Now Mother Earth has come up, and it's pretty much the same. We've, in my experience, what's around me, the Earth and people are vibrating such now that I don't feel so uncomfortable. It's not like I'm being completely electrocuted like I have been these past 20 years, going, I'm just fried because I'm holding too high a frequency in relationship to my surroundings. And the surroundings have come up now, and now Earth is actually feeling really good. And this has happened since my last video. It's actually happened in the past, since about springtime, since about the spring equinox. That's when I started noticing that I don't feel so too high amped. And so it's becoming a whole lot more comfortable for me, in my experience. Another thing that's really happened is, as Q started coming out in the months since my last video, is October 26th, I believe it was. That was ding. That was right about there was a lot of chaos that was coming through at that point in time, and there was a lot of uncertainties, and I certainly didn't know, although I knew everything would be fine, I had no comprehension of what was going to unfold since then. And so my message was to really focus in on what I needed to do physically, like working in this new project and building a food forest, to spend my time more in the physical and bringing down the spiritual into that physical, rather than hiking in the mountains and being in the wilderness away from everybody, holding that vibration and channeling it into earth. Now the message was to come back into society and being around people more, being around projects more, that's more a part of New Earth, just like building food for us, or starting to build and construct in New Earth more eco-friendly ways. And so I had to follow that path, and whereas I was going back up to Tahiti again this spring for working on that project, my friends that were there felt the need to come back down south, to come back here to Florida, right where I am right now. They're farther south in Sebastian and around that area. I'm in Panama City right now, and so I wasn't going to have the help this year at Tahiti, and I started realizing, man, we've got almost 4 to 5 months of colder weather up there than we do here on the coast. And my friend Tom Miller, Artemis, said, why don't you come down here and help on the food forest, and let's put together a food forest. And so I felt that calling, and to get back into the more physical world, the more linear world, holding the higher vibrations that I had achieved through my ascension process in all these years, and to bring that level of frequency down to the lower realms, and to become more focused on the geopolitical goings on of this planet. Because once we have brought the spiritual, those frequencies and that dream, that polarity for the new earth experience, once we have dreamt it, and so many of us came together to hold that focus, which we did for years in the 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013 time periods, in groups of us, many thousands, over 8,000. Takes the square root of 1% of the planetary population, holding a focus to change the consciousness for the collective of humanity. And that's what it was all about. And we did that way back then. And now, as the frequencies got embedded into the planet, the dream of those frequencies, because everything's a frequency, as that dream gets embedded into the planet comes up to the level of frequency that those of us volunteers in holding the focus of those dreams hold. And that's how consciousness works. Consciousness does not start with the material world and we evolve through it. Consciousness starts with the positive and negative of that consciousness wanting to create a thought, and negative ground stays within the creator, and the positive focus is on that thought and that dream that you're holding. And when you hold that thought and dream and put that focus into it, then it slows and comes into the light, sound, vibration, then into the material world. And that's what this is all about. And it's there's so many of us that are consciously doing that now, that we've shifted the planet. And at first, when Earth was a very low vibration and we were holding higher vibrations, that dream, since Earth was such a low vibration at that time, it took a long time, months and months and months, years at first, to manifest. And as we were bringing the frequencies, that's what opening the 1111 doorway in 1992 was all about. The harmonic convergence in 1987 was to harmonize or attune, at one-nize this whole planet, to attune the frequencies through the 144,000 people that were called to participate. And then in 1992, we did ceremonies, which was the wheels within wheels of Ezekiel, to to open the 1111 doorway to bring in the higher frequencies from the galactic center to raise the frequencies of the planet. And that's what we've been doing since 1992. And it really started manifesting heavily, so you could feel it in your body and the surroundings around you about 2004. And then a lot of us, although we began our ascension process many years before, mine started about 1990. I remember clearly when I was given that question: are you going to play in the duality, or are you wanting to go through the ascension? And I came in knowing about that already, some 30 years prior to that. But in 1990, that was when I had to make a decision right then, right there. Which way was I going? Am I dedicated to the shift of the planet, or am I going to go play in the material world and not be connected to the ascension process? And when I made that decision, everything magical started happening. And boy, I started having experiences that only now can I relate to people, because there's so many others who have had similar experiences. But back then, people thought I was kooky. My family and my friends, and that's the world according to Bill. And now we got a whole world of kooky people out there. and that's cool to see, because I'm not alone, and everybody's waking up to this is how reality works. This is how consciousness is slowed into the material experience. And as everyone wakes up around this planet, we're going to have a period of time where it is going to be in total chaos, because anytime you're shifting from one state of being to another, raising your frequency, that raising of the frequencies, all the lower vibrations has to be transmuted so you can move into the higher vibrations. That's what Ascension is all about. There's so many people that, and since I made my last video, there was a whole thing. Allison Coe started doing channelings with people going into QHHT hypnosis and bringing forth messages. Allison Coe was talking about an event where we would have Ascension in New Earth happen right then. Well, the thing is it did happen. There's many people that say that, oh, that was just bogus BS, but what really happened within the United States government at some of the top levels in their taking down of deep state and the beginning of this process of removing the old enslavement groups that were self-centered, that's in service to self rather than being in service to others. The beginning of the removal of that from the planet so that we can create New Earth right here, because this time we're not dropping body in or hitting a frequency where our frequencies don't match, so we create a dimensional portal where we step through and we disappear into New Earth. That's what we've done for how many eons as we went through ascension processes, and not everybody on the planet was awake and aware and ready for that ascension process. But many of the volunteers, but it really started coming in heavily right around that, was it March or April? I think it was March. Mid-March, those energies of New Earth really started coming through as the American government and the white hats within the government started really taking down the deep state. And it was perfectly timed. So many people were upset with the messages that Allison Coe had brought forth, saying that it wasn't real when it very much was real, and it really did happen. It's just people are seeing it in a different way than I'm personally seeing it. I see that it happened absolutely perfectly. We're not. See, we created Earth School. We created this experience that we've got going on. This is this slave planet, prison planet. We created that so that we could have the experience of that. And now collectively we've decided that we want to have a different experience, and collectively we've got to clean it up. Well, in the collective desire to have a different experience, then it's not being created elsewhere for those persons that do not want to participate in this experience. We're changing Mother Earth in the here and now, and that's what I was saying about the frequency levels. When I felt the frequencies being way down here, and I was up here, and it was just so uncomfortable. I felt like I was being electrocuted all the time. That's why I love my wine in the evenings, to bring me down. Well, since then I don't need it anymore. But what's happened is that frequency came up, and so we're now playing on that plane that our physical frequencies that we're channeling in from Source, from Prime Creator, from our Metatronic selves, or Archangelic selves, or Angelic selves, or higher self, or soul self, or the group, they're getting more and more balanced. And that happened right at that March-April transition. It is most amazing. And since then, we have got just so many people everywhere I look. People are waking up. People are starting to realize that they weren't seeing they weren't seeing what was going on behind the Wizard of Oz curtain, and that Wizard of Oz curtain just got ripped open, and you can see the wizard behind the curtain pulling all the levers and strings and blowing the whistles and stuff. And so that we have really witnessed coming to the fore. The Great Awakening is really coming to the fore now. And where we go from here, or how long it's going to take, I don't know. But in my last video, the message was quite clear that it began with the total solar eclipse, and the transition of how long it's going to take to remove these deep state elements from our experience will go until 2024, until the next total solar eclipse that will cross the United States and literally make a cross just a few miles of where Claudia and I went for the center of the center point, the center point of the center point of the total eclipse that crossed this time, which happened in Kentucky right around the land between the lakes, which is formed in the shape of a heart, which is the heart of Turtle Island, which is the Americas. So all of this it perfectly fits in together, but how do you tell the whole story to anybody? I know there's a lot of people that's going to watch this video that might think what I'm saying is absolutely a bunch of baloney. But if you really understand what's going on, it's the absolute truth. It's how it works. It's what's happening. And we're watching it unfold. And when you look back at all the synchronicities over the years, and those of us in all these events since the mid-1980s, since the mass, first of the mass global meditations began in 1985, there's all the things that those of us were seeing at that time back then. It's really been proven true, and we watched it unfold. And the things that we wrote and we saw, it's just like my book, The Great Awakening. Well, now you have people running around making videos everywhere calling this The Great Awakening. You've even got people within military intelligence calling it The Great Awakening. So there we go. So which comes first? Is it the dream? Is it the message? Because what happened before is the vision came through, third eye. It comes through my crown, goes to the third eye, the vision, all the colors that make it up, the rays, light rays. And then I speak that vision, I write that vision, and then it happens. And we're all doing this. The whole world's doing this. Many people think we're getting ready to step into a new Earth, and truly, it's when the planetary population finally wakes up to we're all magical. We're all sons and daughters of God. We're all creating our experience. We're all having thought matter manifestations is what I used to call it. From the thought, it turns into matter, and we're manifesting it. And as everybody on this planet wakes up, the global awakening, the Great Awakening, then we can no longer at some point, when everybody steps into 4D and really into 5D, we cannot have this physical experience anymore. Because there's only one of us here having 7 billion experiences on this planet. Now, actually, there's a lot more consciousness on this planet than that. You know, all life, everything that is, even the inanimate life, like a rock, is still having a life experience. It's still consciousness. It's still consciousness of that experience, because all matter is consciousness that's slowed into a material form. Many people have been sending me messages, asking me to do more videos. Some people have asked me to come on to their radio shows and to express my feelings of what's going on. And I needed to get a video out trying to express my views of of the collective experience as well as my personal experience before anything like that happens. There's many of the light workers, grid keepers, gatekeepers, who are staying really focused on that dream, on holding the mastery focus in their personal selves, which I completely agree with. You have to, until that frequency is so embedded into you that it just, you can't lose it anymore. It is you. You have anchored it, is what I called it in my book, The Great Awakening. You first have, in each different level of the ascension process, you first start receiving the frequencies from above, the consciousness from above, and it starts coming through, and it's opening doorways into a new octave of frequency, a new set of notes, just like keys on a piano. You're in this octave, and then you go into this octave, and you go into that octave. Well, ascension is the same thing. And you have to have completed the last level in experience, as well as removing the negativities in your attachment to it. The roots that keep you anchored in that vibration have to be cut and removed, and your perceptions of what happened in your experiences throughout that have to be loved into submission so that it can be released, and you can go on into a new and higher frequency. And it's that which is going down with so many in humanity right now, because they're waking up to what's going on geopolitically, or even waking up to the frequencies and vibration that's within the cells, the atomic levels, because it all starts at the atomic level. It's the vibration of the electron going around the neutron. That's the frequency. That's where your magnetic memories are stored. That's where all the past history is stored. You have to raise that frequency, and those negative memories have to be purged and released at the atomic level, which goes into the cellular level, in the internal organs of this body, in your muscles, And it's got to go be purged throughout your whole vascular system, through through your liver and kidneys. Just because it's at the atomic level does not mean it does not physically get flushed out, physically turn from that negative vibration that's between the proton and electron, or at that atomic level. Once that's been collected within the cells, and you have to understand, each cell has 100 trillion atoms within the cell, and there's about 100 trillion cells within the body, and it is the same thing as our universe. And you've got about 100 trillion galaxies out there, which is just like the cells within the body, and you've got about 100 trillion stars within each of the galaxies. And so as above, so below, and as we purge ourselves, we're changing positions there. And as we raise our frequency, all of the negativity gets collected from the 100 trillion atoms within your body, and it's got to go through the cells, which gets processed through your bloodstream with the organs that's within the body. And that will repeat and repeat and repeat in every different level of your ascension. And so God, there's just so much. When you start talking about, well, even the internal organs, they actually have relationships to the constellations. The same thing that we deal with in the astronomy, astrological levels, as above, so below. When we're purging here, we're purging out there. And as we raise our frequency here, we're shifting places within this galaxy. And you can see that change. I've explained all of this so many times before, and that's why I quit doing videos for a while also. Not only because of the chaos that was going on, but there's only so much you can say about this, and you're just constantly in a state of repeating, no matter what words you're using. And so we're seeing this on a collective go down, the Great Awakening, the raising of their consciousness levels, their frequency levels, and the change, the realizing that we're all one. We all have power. And as I view that on the exterior, I'm also feeling it within this physical vessel, this body. My body's changing. It's shifting. I went through, in the past 3 years, a major set of physical issues that I was dealing with that I thought was going to be it was debilitating. I thought I was going down and was going to be crippled forever. But as I worked my way through the consciousness levels, my body would heal and become whole again, and I would come back to normal, that which I was thinking was my new normal as people age and grow older. And I thought, damn, am I going to do that too? After a while, my body purges the vibrations and the frequencies, which is illness and disease, and that's, you can call it the same thing. It's just frequencies. It's that which is not needed. It's that which was part of the previous experience, which now has to be purged and removed from the body. And as it comes through from that atomic level and goes through the cellular structure and almost poisons the physical, then the body corrects for that, and that's purged out of the body. Then the body shifts and changes, and it comes back to the normal state that it's supposed to be. Uh, it's not really ever been illnesses. It's been almost like the debilitating experiences I've had has not been like an illness. It's been more like an injury. Um, and it really all started back when I got those spider bites at the winter solstice 2015, I guess it was. Uh, and it every time I thought it was over, then it would come back in some different form within the body, and I would have to look at the consciousness, look at anything that needed to be changed and shifted in my ways of viewing things. And as I would go through the process and my consciousness went through that level of frequency processing, then it actually happened in my lower physical level too. And and I'd purge and I'd clear, and then everything was back to normal. It comes back to being like its physical body's supposed to be. What a trip this has been. People could say, oh, that's caused by your diet. Nah. People who know me know I'm pretty careful with my diet. I'm very concerned about that, and I'm still having the issues. So it's more than diet. It has to do with previous experiences. It has to do with memories. It has to do with the purging all the way down to the core of the being. And only by doing that, that purging can this body shift into new earth. Now, that comes into a whole nother thing that so many people have been saying for years and years and years, almost 10 years now, that people that cannot raise their frequency will drop body and then come back into a new body, be reborn again in the future when we're in a higher vibration. Well, there's many of us that are there are volunteers consciously doing this, that knows that if we're taking this body, we've got to go through this process of purging. Yes, it has a lot to do with what we eat and intake in our body. Yes, it has to do a lot with our consciousness and what we're witnessing and hearing and seeing, with watching the news, with watching what's going down on this planet. Some of us can handle being in the middle of the war zone, in the trenches, and still hold the frequency of love and the higher vibrations while being here. But some people aren't yet at that point. Some people don't need to go there. They need to, for the collective, just like my friend Sandra Walter, she needs to stay at top of Mount Shasta. I mean, just right there communicating with the masters and not coming back down into the trenches. I'm a warrior. And the battle is part of the fun of the game. Years ago, it was life and death, and I didn't want to drop this body, and that was kind of scary because I had no idea what was going to happen. And I didn't want to drop the body before my frequencies and level of ascension had been achieved as the same as what I came in with before this incarnation. Because you can come down here and get lost in it. You can come down here and forget who you are and get caught up in the lower vibrations and not get yourself out. Well, that was part of the original game. It's all a game. The whole thing is a game. And the game's about experience. The game's about choice. The game's about consciousness. The game's about mastery. The game's about the experience. And everybody on this planet is a master. And they're mastering their experience right now, whether they know it or not. Whether they think God is doing this to them, they're still mastering it. And that comes into something else that's really interesting to me, and that's that so many people, ever since Q started speaking in October of 2017, so many people felt the need to come out and start doing videos and teaching what was going on geopolitically. And so many of these guys are in that religious stage right now, which is, it's not a bad thing. It's a great thing. It's the beginning of the awakening. It's just some of us did it a long time ago, and and we don't, and so those persons that are light workers or white hats or patriots, as they like to call themselves, who believe in God and country, which, yes, of course, they're coming at it from a very religious standpoint, as God is to the exterior of themselves. They haven't really come to that realization that they're part of, they're creating their experience, and it's not just being done to them, which is all part of the consciousness and ascension experience. And there's no way that somebody like me would go tell them, you're doing this. You're responsible for your experience, because they couldn't understand it at this point. And we all have to go through that. Every single one of us has to go through that. And as we go through it and start connecting to all our higher levels of self, all the way back to Prime Creator, and we start embodying that, we become the embodiment of the frequencies of Prime Creator on this linear level. There's great responsibility in that, because at that point, you know, you're the master of the magic. You're the master of everything that you're experiencing, and what you see on the exterior of you might not be what you're experiencing right around you at that time, but we're still contributing to that greater level, that higher consciousness. We are collectively making this experience, and those who are awake and aware and doing this consciously have more of an input, because they have the heartfelt emotion that they're putting into that divine, the dream, the seeing of the vision of that dream, the casting of the spell, the spelling, the frequency, the throat chakra part of it, and the heart. In those levels right there, that's what creates the manifestation. And then you have to be grounded. And those people that are just now waking up, that call themselves patriots, which I'm a patriot too, absolutely. And I also believe in global. We're one people in the globe. I believe in the singularity of that, as well as the individual of collective groups within it. And it's all about that collective experience. As these patriots wake up, they're going to come to the point where what the Bible that they're reading now, what they understand from those words now, within those stories that they state as they are trying to, as they create a video explaining what they see going on, and explaining, hey, peace, Ching's my old Chinese interpreter when I lived in China in the early 1990s, and he just popped up on Skype. I haven't had Skype on in a long time. Anyway, these people are going to realize that they have a lot more to do in the creation of this physical reality that we are collectively experiencing. And it's interesting to watch them wake up and to participate, because just like martial arts, I mean, when you get your black belt, you've got to become a teacher. And you're going to be a teacher through the next 3 belts until you start adding more back into your styles of martial arts, and then you start stepping into the mastery levels. But it's, I mean, once you become the teacher, you're a teacher for your first black belt, your second dan, your third dan, and then you've got community service coming through, and you've got to get back to your community. And then after you've done that through your 4th, 5th, and 6th dan, or 4th and 5th dan, then you're actually at that point taking those changes that you've made to your style of martial arts in your own mastery, and you put that back into that particular martial art. Your personal signature frequency gets added back into that style, and then you're considered master. And it's a lifelong dedication. It's the same thing with Ascension. It's the same thing with being light workers, gatekeeper, way shower. It's who you are and about your life. And we're seeing so many people wake up now that are doing the same things. They're following the same paths, but much, much quicker than those of us that began back in the 1980s. And that's really cool. And it's as the numbers of the collective of humanity increases, everything changes, because the more people we have focused on the dream of what we wish to create, the faster it manifests, the faster the frequency gets, which is hand in hand. It's one and the same. It's one and the same. The more the collective wakes up, the faster our frequencies increase, the more that this collective manifestation rapidly changes into something totally and completely new. And we're witnessing that happen. That's really, really cool. Now, we've watched what's going on with the censorship, and really that has a lot to do with Ascension too, because if you were talking about being a Christian patriot out there, and somebody tells you that, like what I've just stated, that you are the man, you're actually the master of your experience, and you are doing this for your experience. Your thought and your emotion and what you've been focused on has more to do with that you're experiencing than God is doing this to you. They might not be ready for that, but that's a fact, Jack. You come to a point where you realize, wow, it is a matrix, and just like Nemo, or whatever his name was, we are doing this 100% on our own. And that goes back to something that I started to say earlier, when we finally get to the point where everybody realizes that we individually are doing this, and we as groups are collectively doing it, and we as regions are collectively doing it nationally and doing it globally, then we're going to hit a certain point to where everybody realizes that as individuals, we are the masters, and then boom, everything shifts. And that's the event. Other than a wave that's coming in from the galactic center that changes our sun, which is transformed and set back to Earth for an event, which I don't feel is going to happen. Yes, we're going to have higher frequencies, but are we going to have this Earth instantly transformed like that? Nah, it's going to be collective. And so, and there might be 1,000 years of peace before everybody wakes up and realizes that they are masters. And then we can change this, just like it's described in so many holy books, the new Earth that's described within the Revelations. But we are going to do it collectively, just like as we've increased our frequencies since the harmonic convergence and the open of the 1111 doorway. And those stair-step levels of frequency, we can look up. Those of us who were awake and aware way back when, who were looking at the Milky Way galaxy, has noticed that Milky Way galaxy is getting wider because we're getting closer to it. The closer we get, the more it looks like it's getting bigger and bigger. And those of us that are very aware of that know that is the case. We're moving positions. This whole quadrant is moving with us. Everything that revolves, we revolve around Alcyon. Everything that revolves around Alcyon, and Alcyon and many other constellations revolve around the great central sun of Sirius B. Well, that's our quadrant within this galaxy, and it's our quadrant within this galaxy that's moving. That's one of the stars. The Milky Way galaxy looks like we're getting closer there, but the actual fixed astrological signs look like they're staying the same because the quadrant is moving within the galaxy. A lot of people say you're crazy, but just watch. It's there. It's happening. It's quite obvious. It's a beautiful process. It really is, and we're shifting very, very fast now. We're shifting at light speed. My feeling is, as we watch everything that gets exposed because of Team Dark's 55 minutes, we have to be totally forgiving of these persons that played the dark experience, the opposite polarity, even though they might have been killing people. They might have been in human trafficking. They might have been into cannibalistic things. They might have done everything to enslave humanity and the planet and wanting to kill us. That was part of the previous experience. And 9/11 had to happen so we could wake up the whole planet, the whole world. Because in previous ascension processes, there was only a handful of us that could reach and hold that frequency, embody, become the embodied masters that could hold that frequency, and we would shift into a different dimension because the planet was at such a lower vibration then. We'd raise our frequency, our vibration, our consciousness levels, and we would go through an ascension process, literally being seen moved out of this planet, or disappearing, or imploding, or just dropping body and dying right there, however it was. And this time, everybody's coming with us. And so many of the volunteers have been expressing that for many, many, many years. This time, we're not going anyplace. We're bringing the Earth with us. I've said that a many a time, and boy, have I had some strange looks, but it's true. It's fact. I know a lot of people can't relate to that concept until they hit that level of consciousness where they can go, oh, I get it now. But that we're seeing happen. We're seeing unfold. And the other night, 57 minutes. I got 3 minutes left. About 4 nights ago, Tom and I went out to eat, and our waitress was talking about higher consciousness and watching videos and stuff. And she kept on looking at me saying, you look really familiar. And Tom started talking to her, and I really was just being shy and quiet. And it turned out that she had been seeing my videos online and was absolutely adamant about her and her friends' quest to find out what higher consciousness is, and their desire to learn. And she's a millennial. She was probably 20 years old. I can't tell anymore. But it was so funny because she said all of her friends are on that higher consciousness journey right now. And so she found my videos online. And her name's Alexis. And so, Alexis, if you see this video, hey to you. And so, all right, I guess this is the first of a new series of videos, and I'm being called to also change my Facebook was always about the geopolitical awakening, and my videos were about the spiritual awakening. And I'm getting ready to start doing some new Earth stuff and to describe what we're doing here in the creation of this food forest and container garden and eco-friendly building that we're going to be doing here at Tom's place, and just like we were doing at Tahiti and my farm in Tennessee. And so some of my videos are going to be about that. And with the censorship going on, I got hit really heavily. Many people knows my YouTube channel had thousands of subscribers removed from that. My Facebook I had over 10,000 subscribers or followers there, and they removed it back to 7,000, and they've limited me. I haven't had, and there's been no increase since last probably October. And so whoever's going to see my videos are going to be people who need to see my videos, and it's going to be all about a vibrational thing, I'm quite certain. But this is the first, and I've got to cut it off at 59 right here now, so because I only get 60 minutes. Anyway, love you all. Bye for now.